Mr. Norris Howard. So good to hear from you, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, welcome everyone to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go. I'm Jer Stays. We have some interesting things to talk about on this Wednesday.
Really? I mean, there's a lot going on.
I think we need to start with the strike on this October 25th because we have now exceeded the length that the UAW struck against General Motors back in 2019.
Yeah, as it stands right now, the UAW actually is expanding the strike to the most profitable plants in the country. It feels a little bit like this was sort of, I don't want to say a trump card, but this was definitely a big move from the UAW. These are plants that produce the Chevy Tahoe and Escalade and, you know, the Dodge Ram trucks. So, I mean, these are big ticket vehicles that sell well, that make these companies millions and millions of dollars. And according to a report from Reuters, the cost of the strike is moving up to about $400 million a week. And that's just because of the addition of these couple of plants. The big three are feeling this. GM posted record profits in Q3. They don't want to give any extra year-end predictions because of how much money they're losing because of this strike.
More than 52,000 people are on strike right now. And some people use different levels of multiplier for the number of people who aren't working because of suppliers and everything else, everything that goes down the chain with this. These weren't really announced. These kind of just happened. It wasn't something where there was going to be, hey, we're going to do this and this. All of a sudden, it was, all right, we're going to be walking out on these things. And it feels like the screws are tightening to try to get the rest of what the UAW and Shawn Fain wanted out of this. This feels very different than other strikes because it feels like somebody's trying to make a point.
Oh, absolutely. Some DMs from a spokesman for the UAW leaked and, really tried, I feel like a lot of traditional media and other pundits, especially those in the automotive news sector, really tried to paint it as this sort of nefarious political skullduggery from the UAW, when in actuality, when I read through the messages, it really just seemed like a guy who was excited about their strategies working. And the more and the longer that this strike goes on, I think the more that the big three continue to look like villains in this sense. I mean, like I said, GM posted record profits again, and many of these automakers are coming off record years. There's kind of the sort of moral high ground is already gone. They don't have that. Fain has done, I think, a particularly effective job at painting himself as an everyman and painting the UAW as voices of the working class, which is, what unions have always strived to do. And you're looking at a situation where if they don't come to the table very soon, there's going to be serious ramifications. We already see that GM is going to be not producing the EV versions of the Equinox and a few other sport utility vehicles because they can't put the people in the plants, and there have been layoffs and all this sorts of stuff. So they're already feeling it. I'm just really interested to see what comes next.
Talking to some suppliers that I know, it is clear to me that a lot of layoffs are coming in the supply chain. If this keeps going, we're going to lose a number of companies that are going to be very hard to restart. And I hear everything you're saying about the worker. I get that. I wonder if, first off, I think the strike doesn't have as much legs if you do this a few years ago. I think in the last few years, there's been a real sea change in how people feel about unions and workers. But I also wonder, are people starting to get tired of this? That's one of the things I've seen pop up more and more as this strike drags on. The union's gotten a lot of wins so far.
I completely disagree with that. I actually think unions have been getting major love nationwide. When you look at the expansion of collective action in really industries that have never seen it before, especially from millennials and younger Gen Xers, you are starting to see collective action. You're starting to see unions arise in areas like video games, and you're starting to see unions happen in food service. You have the nurses union, which potentially is thinking about a strike. The casinos here in Detroit on strike. We're still in the midst of a SAG-AFTRA strike with the actors. The collective action from unions and union-like action, I think, is something that Main Street is very much so in support of. But however, I think because traditional media and other outlets and, certain power brokers, it behooves them to push a narrative that unions are bad for you. I'm not necessarily putting myself for or against, but I think to say that people are quote unquote tired of unions and collective action, I just don't think that is how the conversation plays out on Main Street. I think people understand the value of it.
I'm not saying that all people are tired. I'm saying that some of those people on the line, as things start to get harder, are tired on this particular line. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think we're ahead for some stormy times, Norris. And I am fully in support of people getting paid what they will and what they need to get paid. But I think there are storm clouds on the horizon. There are certain sectors that are going to have more ability to have leverage than others. And my long-term worry is with automakers, that can be outsourced crazy. I feel like the casino workers in time may have, you go to the casino and it's a physical thing. You can't send that to Mexico or China or whatever. And I feel like the big three might say, okay, we'll agree to these deals, and then all of a sudden you're going to start seeing plants shut down. And I know that Sean Fain is saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and unionize more plants. We're going to be more aggressive about it, which frankly, as guests of this show have said, the big three would love to see Tesla unionize. They'd love to see Hyundai unionize. They'd love to see that to even up that playing field as far as costs.
The thing is, and I'm going to say something very drastic here. And I'm not necessarily saying I hope this happens, because this would impact virtually every family all of us know. But maybe this is the thing to get Detroit off the teat of automakers. And, the more we're talking about, we're one industry town, we need to diversify, we need to do more, we need to do this, we need to do that. If people can't get paid what their work is valued, if they're seeing CEOs make upwards of 3 to 4 to 500 times more than what the average person makes, when they can't even afford the product that they make, I am sorry. I don't have any sorts of sympathy for a company that operates in that manner. I simply do not. And if they decide to outsource, or if they decide to take their business elsewhere, I can guarantee you they'll still be slaughtered by the Japanese and Korean automakers, because not only do they not have this issue, but they make a superior product currently, and they're not taking the PR hits from this kind of stuff. So, I really feel like the big three, it behooves them to come to the table in good faith and really think about the positives here. This is what I never understand about these sorts of negotiations is think about how awesome it would be if you had a company who says, you know what, we're going to support unions and we're going to pay people what they deserve. Our CEO only makes 50 times what the average worker makes, and everybody has, way more than the living wage, plus great healthcare packages and time off. If you were a company to do something like that, think of the positives. Think of how many people would want to go and buy your cars, because I think people are also conscious consumers and would want to support companies like that. But instead, there's the nickel and diamond. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I agree with all of the UAW's tactics. I'm just not going to cape for a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation that doesn't want to take, 4% of its yearly revenue and distribute it amongst its workforce. I don't see how that's something that anybody can be on the same side of.
I think fiscally it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Of course it is.
I'm going to look at it from a different view. I understand what you're saying about the workers, but from the suppliers, when you have a company that's 90 or 80% reliant on one or two customers, you may as well be a division of that company.
Yeah.
And I think our suppliers need to diversify who they serve and what they do, or else eventually, no matter how this shakes out, they're going to get rolled over.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. And, I think also then it behooves those companies to try to, reach out to their contacts in the big three and try to move this along because, again, I just feel like, and don't get me wrong, you are correct. The longer this goes on, the more people who are just sort of tangentially involved and not necessarily striking themselves will be affected. And I think that's terrible. But also at the same time, I just don't see how the continued wave of executive CEO profits and all the rest of the stuff can continue to just spiral out of control, and that doesn't benefit the worker. And this is more than just an auto industry issue. This is a nationwide workforce issue. It is a question we have to answer in America, and we are at a crossroads right now ideologically, and we can decide, do we want there to be a middle class, or are we okay with there being the rich and the not rich? We have to figure that out as a nation, and it seems like right now Detroit is always a bellwether for that, and we'll see how it pans out. But I don't see how the big three come out of this with any sort of positive spin or positive light without major concessions, and I think they need to just, eat crow on this one.
Let's get into one thing around town and then a little bit of feedback from listeners. Inflatables, an inflatable dome coming to a neighborhood near you, Norris Howard.
Yeah, so apparently there is a addition to Chandler Park that's going to go in. It's going to be an inflatable, sort of in the same vein as the Lexus velodrome that you see if you're driving up 75. City Council has approved this athletic air dome, they're calling it, in Chandler Park. Is going to cost about $13 million, a little bit closer to $14 million with all the extra little bells and whistles put on it. This is going to be coming from ARPA dollars. So apparently this money has already been set aside. But the thing is, they're supposed to set this money aside by December of next year. But the thing that's weird about this, and some of these concerns have already been brought up, is that I'm not sure if y'all remember this, but the Alexis Velodrome caved in on itself over the pandemic under some heavy snows. I don't understand why this is still a trend here. We have quite extreme weather. And, for as much as, I understand that the city is strapped for cash in more ways than one, our recreation centers are something that we should take vast amounts of pride in. They are something that can become pillars of our communities. They can become full-service community centers. I used to work at Northwest Activity Center, which is one of the better rec centers in the city. It's well-maintained. It's well-run. And, for me, that was a jewel of the neighborhood. It was a place where people came and had their block club meetings, had all of their, sporting needs met, pools, all that kind of stuff. And you look around at other parts of the city and they're just not serviced in the same way with that kind of stuff. And I just think, when we talk about rebuilding the quote unquote neighborhoods, this is a major aspect of it. So I feel like if we really want to invest in places beyond downtown, midtown, Corktown, community centers are a good way to start. And, I feel like a inflatable athletic dome is not the kind of investment that creates a long-lasting sort of linchpin of the community. I think it makes it look interesting, and yes, it's something new, and I think youth and other people will use it, But is it something that becomes a pillar of your neighborhood? I'm not so sure.
I do want to give a shout out to AB Ford Park because recently that was unveiled as a new community center over there in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood, brand new from the ground up. Let's get into some listener feedback. We have a few things. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Ted, because we're going to talk about libraries again.
Word to Ted.
I think it's funny we're talking about regional library connections when we have areas of the city of Detroit, he's referring to Detroit proper,
Okay.
not being served by an active library today. I'm in Jefferson Chalmers, and the closest library to me that's walking biking distance is Grosse Pointe Park's Ewald branch. I got a sticker on my Detroit library card, which permits me computer access, books, and CDs. Half the library stock I can't use because I live in Detroit, and they have arbitrary limits on what is permissible to loan out. You know what I'd love? For the Detroit local branch to be opened or reopened. The Monteith Library is a beautiful library and would serve a huge part of the city, but it's been closed since COVID, and there are no plans to open it back up. He talks about it needing millions in repairs. He believes that there is money in the budget to start those repairs. He is convinced that the city hopes to sell it off or tear it down. He ends a comment with, "What am I paying these taxes for when I don't get the service?"
Hey, man, listen, you are not going to get any argument from me on that one. I completely agree. I think that the city needs to really rethink a lot of this stuff. I think, when it comes to library and city services, obviously, population decline has been a major effect on much of that. But also a lot of this could be alleviated with regional participation, as we've discussed on this show at length. A regional, I don't want to call it an authority, but a regional a consortium of libraries between Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County, or Wayne, Oakland, Washtenaw, whoever wants to partner, I think would be fantastic. And I think you would be able to see a more usage of the libraries because of it. There's no reason why you, Ted, should live that close to Grosse Pointe and not be able to fully utilize the facilities. Because I have been corrected on this particular topic and taught that nationwide, it is a regional partnership. So if that is the model and the standard nationwide, then I think it's important for the city of Detroit to maybe rethink the library system and think about some regional participation.
This next one's from Bob. Just wanted to let you know what a crazy success the Uniroyal Promenade has been. They live very much nearby. In fact, sent a picture overlooking the new Uniroyal Promenade and also Mount Elliott Park. Since the opening of the promenade, the parking lot has been full and there is a constant stream of bikers and walkers. It's bananas amazing, super vibrant. What a blessing to the city. I think it's going to also help a ton of people discover Gabrielle Richard Park. It's gorgeous. We have enjoyed many Jets Pizza picnics at the foot of the MacArthur Bridge on the park side. I attached a pic. I will share it with our people on social media. This was on a Tuesday, like 4:30 p.m. It remained that busy and more well past sunset. You also wanted to mention there is some ongoing construction, so sometimes there'll be closures during the day. Take care, love, and appreciate the show.
Fantastic. People love outdoor spaces. People love third spaces. We're in a post-pandemic life. People want to go back outside. Detroit has won numerous awards for its riverfront. I think continuing to improve that is something that the city is very cognizant of, and they want to hang their hat on that. And I think that is a fantastic thing. I think that is one of the really awesome bright spots of the city. Think about how cool it would be if you're here from, Germany or whatever. You're here to go to Movement. You go down to Hart Plaza. You have a great time. You have drinks with your buddies. And then you're able to go to like a more chill, laid back event out at Belle Isle that's more focused on, just hanging out, has a more loungy vibe. But all day you've been on the river, add some restaurants there, add some bars there. And I mean, the riverfront is maybe 2 or 3 pieces away from being just absolutely incredible. It is so close. And the city is looking like they want to get it over the line. So I'm very happy and positive about this.
And finally, Osvaldo. Hi, I'm honestly not sure why I've never heard of this podcast. I was born and raised in Southwest Detroit and plan on staying now that I've finished university. I was hoping if one of your next podcasts could be about the Joe Louis Greenway. Not sure if it's already a show or a podcast, but I know for sure there's a lot to talk about given it is a Detroit project that won't necessarily affect just downtown, if not inner Detroit as well. Thank you. I'll add that we've touched on it a few times. In fact, we've touched on it a lot of time, but we haven't done a specific episode outlining just the Joe Louis Greenway, and maybe we should do that so it's like called out specifically. And as to hearing about the show, we're an independent project, so we don't really have a marketing budget.
Right.
We're funded by our members at patreon.com/dailydetroit and some underwriters. You will hear them on the show from time to time. I would love to tell more people about the show, and that's something that if anyone wants to help me do that and help us do that, we do what we can and do stuff online. And, a lot of people find us through the podcast apps and stuff like that. But, we are not a multi-million-dollar organization at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting the word out would really be appreciated. Any kind of word. We actually got new postcards. We've got some things in the works, but that's the thing that I think we really want to work on going forward to get the word out, because, these TV stations and everyone else, they put a lot of money into that, and we just don't have those kind of dollars as an independent project.
Give us money. Please give us money. But also on the Greenway, I haven't had a chance to go through it myself. I would love to. And word to Southwest Detroit, which I think is really, in my opinion, a tragically underrated neighborhood in the city, man. You go down there and you can have some of the best fun. Word to everybody down there at El Club and all the fantastic restaurants in Southwest. If you haven't been to Southwest Detroit recently and you haven't gone through the Greenway, maybe take this nice last couple weekends of good weather, these good days of weather that we're having this week, and get out to Southwest Detroit, because it's such a great aspect of the city.
You know what I heard earlier this week? That a combination bar and residential space on the same block but across the street from the historic Abix bar over on Gilbert Street is for sale.
Oh, somebody better snatch that up.
Right? Live upstairs, do like a coffee house bar concept downstairs.
Nah, but that's prime real estate, man. Like that's right there in the mix. So, somebody out there who listening, who may have some speculative dollars ready to go, go on down there and support Southwest. Because when you get down there and you are ready to do some things that are positive and are exciting, that neighborhood will support you. So, I would love to see something new go there.
All right, with that, we are done with your Daily Detroit for today. Norris Howard, so good to talk to you.
As always, it's great to talk to you and to hear from the listeners as well. Whether you agree or disagree with me, we love to hear from you. It's so cool.
313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. With that, I am Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.